In the TIPBS podcast, you get great ideas and practical advice for educators. You can get more invaluable insights and free resources by subscribing to the TIPBS monthly newsletter. Visit www.tipbs.com and register your email address. Hello and welcome to the TIPBS podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kay Eyre. Brain imaging research has found that children exposed to early trauma through abuse, neglect or other forms of adversity develop changes in the structure and functions of their brain. Research has also found that these changes in the brain are reflected in changes to their capacity to learn and function at school. This is particularly observed in lower scores on standard intelligence tests and poor educational outcomes for children exposed to early trauma. In today's research podcast, we are reviewing a paper by Helen Shermer on the neuropsychological outcomes of primary school-aged children with a history of maltreatment. You can find the reference to this paper in our show notes. 28 children with a history of maltreatment were recruited through Take Two Therapeutic Service and Berry Street Home-Based Care Services in Victoria, Australia, and compared to a control group of 28 children with no maltreatment history. The study found that maltreated students displayed lower scores on measures of overall IQ scores compared to non-maltreated students. The authors explained this finding by suggesting that maltreated children exposed to experiences of abuse and neglect may be reinforced for learning skills that are different to those assessed by academic intelligence tests. In an environment where parents are disengaged, neglectful, or potentially volatile, children are unlikely to be encouraged to express themselves or engage in conversation. These children may even be fearful of expressing their needs. Such children are likely to be exposed to less written verbal material compared to their peers growing up in secure and language-rich households. It is therefore unsurprising that they display limitations in the development of language and verbal reasoning skills. Similarly, the development of problem-solving skills is likely to be applied to basic survival needs, for example, getting food, avoiding violence, or maintaining control over relationships to avoid rejection or abandonment. The application of these skills to more abstract, less emotionally charged reasoning tasks, such as arithmetic or creative writing, may well be limited. They may perceive such tasks as being illogical or irrelevant, and this may lead to these students becoming bored or disengaged with academic work, leading them to fall further behind on their learning and cognitive development. The authors acknowledge the complexity of factors that may lead to low IQ scores in maltreated children. There may be genetic vulnerabilities in many children toward lower functioning. Also, researchers previously found that low average and borderline IQ scores may be overrepresented in parents of low socioeconomic status, and reported neglect or abuse of children may represent a marker of limited cognitive resources available to the parents, as well as poor coping and support systems in other ways. In addition, the finding highlights the effects of environmental opportunity at critical developmental periods on subsequent cognitive outcome. As noted in other research, interactions between neglectful mothers and their infants are often characterized by reduced reciprocity and limited verbal interaction. Consistent with the global pattern of performance, children with a history of maltreatment perform below the comparison group on both expressive and receptive language measures. Receptive language refers to a student's ability to understand information. It involves understanding the words, sentences, and meaning of what others say or what is read. Expressive language, on the other hand, refers to being able to put thoughts into words and sentences in a way that makes sense and is grammatically accurate. The study found that maltreated children showed particularly significant deficits in their expressive language skills compared to non-maltreated children. This may have a significant impact on the child's adaptation to the social and academic demands of school life. A child who cannot communicate clearly may struggle to negotiate interactions with peers and may present as immature or withdrawn. They may also have difficulties with requesting help from teachers and with work that involves oral presentation. Unfortunately, they may also rely on behavioural communication. That is, they may express their feelings and frustrations with explosive outbursts and misbehaviour. Children with a history of maltreatment who are likely to have witnessed parents being physically and verbally abusive towards them or others will be particularly vulnerable towards applying these forms of poor coping and expressions of anger to their own frustration and peer conflicts. Difficulties with visual perceptual reasoning and visual motor integration may further disadvantage children in the acquisition of key academic skills. Visual spatial reasoning abilities are particularly fundamental to any mathematical concepts, and impairments may present as difficulties acquiring numeracy. In addition, the coordination of visual and motor systems is an important component of developing writing skills, and children who struggle with visual motor integration may therefore have difficulty with learning letter formation and handwriting. It is notable in the study that the maltreated group performed more poorly in the acquisition and recall of auditory verbal material. Given these findings, it is possible that maltreated children may have been relatively disadvantaged in their ability to understand the verbal material presented to them and in their capacity to articulate the content, particularly on a narrative recall task. Shermer's study found also deficits in maltreated children's capacity for divided attention. That is, the ability to focus on multiple tasks or ideas at once. Examples are singing along to a song while driving, having a conversation while walking, or listening to music while doing the grocery shopping. In schools, there is frequently an expectation that children will be able to attend to multiple, simultaneous stimuli and response tasks, such as listening while taking notes. A child who has difficulty with this skill is likely to appear distracted and potentially inflexible to school staff, and may show a pattern of missing important information. The findings of impairment in executive functioning also has significance beyond the academic domain, as children with executive dysfunction are often observed to have deficits in social reasoning and problem solving, and also in behavioural regulation. Executive functions, collectively referred to as executive function and cognitive control, are a set of cognitive processes that are necessary for the cognitive control of behaviour, selecting and successfully monitoring behaviours that facilitate the attainment of chosen goals. The authors suggest that children at risk might benefit from explicit skills training in a range of social-emotional skills, including the inhibition of inappropriate behaviours, identifying and regulating emotional states, and developing adaptive social problem-solving skills. These interventions, delivered in the context of the disrupted attachment style, may have a significant impact in helping maltreated children to achieve better mental health outcomes in adulthood. In summary, with regard to the maltreated child's classroom adjustment, an awareness of cognitive difficulties may help to guide the teacher's responses to challenging behaviour and to help frame appropriate supports for maltreated children. Children with a maltreatment history are likely to struggle with some aspects of academic curriculums and may need additional classroom support, or in some cases modified curriculum. They are also likely to require help with some of the metacognitive tasks of learning, such as planning and organisational strategies for problem solving and assignments, independently initiation of tasks, and monitoring work for errors. An understanding of these difficulties in reference to brain-behaviour relationships could significantly impact therapeutic approaches implemented in the school context. Children with a history of maltreatment may need specific interventions focused on building skills for social interaction and emotional regulation. Trauma-informed approaches to behaviour should also keep in mind the broader goal of facilitating the development of inhibitory control in the context of trusting relationships in the school community, while continuing to target more specific behaviours of concern. That's it for the podcast today. I hope you found this research review interesting and useful. To find the reference to this research paper, visit our blog www.tipbs.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.